taught last week? What was the lesson you taught on this last Sabbath?
Health. It was basically going into health.
Keeping the body together? Okay. Yeah. So the last I was in class, we had to cut Q&As short, and I said that I would pick it up because there was a lot of questions out there that I couldn't answer. Okay, so I'm going to answer questions for the first 15 minutes, and then we're going into the lesson today. All right? So, is there an elder in Philadelphia at this time? The answer to that is no. But there is a regional elder over the East Coast if you need some guidance from Philadelphia. All right. So, we only got 15 minutes of Q&A, so come on, brothers and sisters. Go ahead and shoot your questions out so I can answer them real quick. Thank you. Appreciate it. Some hot tea here. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer those too. No problem. When will we have someone in the Wisconsin area? Good question. That's dictated on an elder or someone growing in that particular area. But again, we have a regional setup knowing that we don't have elders in every particular state. So it's broken down in regions. And we did that so that even though you're in a place where there might not be a fellowship, we can help build a person or people there that can begin a fellowship in that particular area. But the first connection starts with the regional elders. Can you explain the book that they said King James wrote about demonology? That's good. That's a good question. First of all, you have to realize that there was a battle between what the movement they called the Protestants and the Catholics. Before there was any such thing as Protestants, you have to realize King James led that protest against the satanic Antichrist Catholic Church. So it wasn't until after King James' death that these circulations started coming out to actually demonize him. They had books that was made by Sir Francis Bacon and others claiming that he was a homosexual, claiming that he was dealing with all levels of wickedness. You understand? So a lot of this information that you're hearing about King James wasn't during King James's life. These are circulations that was put out by the Catholic Church to demonize a brother. King James was a black man that stood against the satanic Antichrist Catholic Church. So the majority of things that you hear against King James, you have to chalk it up under demonization by the Catholic Church. You understand? First of all, instead of it being a second author or someone claimed that King James did something, what works did you see actually from King James that connected him to demonology? None. So they waited till King James was passed. They wait till he died, and then they begin to demonize him. And you notice that there's no protection when it comes to King James. When you look at the Catholic Church authority or the church authority, there's no defense for King James, and there's a reason for that. King James was a Jew. He was a black man that stood for truth. So there's no protection. They don't look to protect him because they know that he didn't stand for the Catholic paganism way. So no, it's a waste of time going into all this information about what they claim King James was dealing with. But yet there's no proof from King James' life that he dealt with any of this. Okay? So to go into a book that's demonizing him, that has no authority, it's a waste of study. Okay. What's the next question? You got them?
Someone says, should women be separate during the womanly cycle of 7 days?
Okay, that is a good question, and that's a pertinent question. Let me pause this. That is a good question and a pertinent scriptural question based on the scriptural time of separation due to issues in Leviticus. We know in the Old Testament that it was unclean for a woman during her cycle each month for her to go into the temple during Sabbaths or holy days. Or you understand, usually you can go in with the congregation, but it was unlawful for a woman. In Leviticus 15 it speaks of it, right? It was unlawful for a woman to go, or a man, mind you, not just a woman or a man to go into the temple or amongst the congregation during an issue coming out of a person. That means, and that made the person unclean. That means any type of issue, which means, just say if you have a sore, an open wound, and there's pus and blood, that was unclean according to the law. So this have nothing to do with man per se, but the law of issue itself. If there's blood protruding from a person or leaking or pus or anything, they were deemed unclean and couldn't come amongst the congregation. You read about that in Leviticus 15. On the other hand, it was on the next level when it comes to women being unclean, because there was a place that the women used to go to be pampered during that 1 week period. Because why? Anything they sat on, anything they touched in the house had to be thrown out because it was unclean. And that leads us to understanding grace. Because if we're going to follow that to the letter of the uncleanness, then that means during the woman's time of month, any bed she sleep on, you must throw out of the house. Anything she touch in the house, you must throw out. Okay? Everything. If she touch a spoon, plate, whatever she touches in your house during that 7-day period, according to the law, you must throw out. So if you want to deal with the verbatim letter of the law, you understand, then be prepared for you not to have any property in your house. You understand? So then we must ask, well, where do grace come in? Well, we know that during a woman's issue, a man is not to deal intimately with the woman. That's something that we can control under grace. I mean, not under grace, but regardless, we can be separated because it's unclean to deal with a woman during that time. And usually the law, even without the law, we know that something is wrong with that. So a woman is not supposed to deal intimately with her husband during that 7-day period. Another thing we have to understand. When this law was instituted, it was in a controlled, lawful environment within Israel. Which means, keep in mind, if you're a woman or a wife or a sister go and touch something someplace else, and you touch it, you're unclean too. So what happens if a woman go into the store, or women in your society goes into a store to purchase something, her personals for that time? That means when you go into that store and touch the same thing she touched, you're unclean too. So how do we resolve that? We resolve that under grace, understanding that every part of the issue law cannot be followed in our present time. What we can follow without throwing things away or becoming unclean ourselves is not dealing with another person who's dealing with an issue during that 7 days. That's the clear-cut point of it. All right? Because really, during that time, because we're not following the laws of the Old Testament, everyone in the house is unclean. So if you try to restrict things from the woman that she can't do, then you must include yourself because she's living in your house. You're unclean too. So if you can't go to certain places and do certain things, if she can't go to certain places and do certain things, you can't either because you're in the house and have become unclean with her. So if there is a law where, I know some Hebrews say, well, during this time, usually women keep them to themselves anyway during this time. But women can't go to the service, or she can't go to get anointed, or she can't go to do certain things. Well, okay. If the law say that and that applies and there's no grace involved, then whoever in that house that's unclean with her can't go. That's just the way it is. Because she's not the only one unclean. She touched everything that you've touched. She laid on the bed that you laid on. She sat on the couch you slept on. Everything she touched in that house during that 7-day period made you unclean. So if you're going to restrict her, that's fine. But the whole house is restricted. Okay? So we have to understand where grace applies in certain circumstances. All right? So I hope that answered that question. What is the next question?
Someone says, what are your thoughts of the debate between Elder Gabar and Rawchaa?
My thoughts of that debate between Elder Gabar and Rawchaa is that if it leads to some level of understanding each other, then it's all for the good. It wouldn't be the first time that there was a debate or a discussion. When you look at Christ and the disciples, every place they went, there was a different discussion with people who were Israelites, who didn't understand the same doctrine. So if this leads to a breakthrough, even if Rawchaa never gets it, but if it leads to a breakthrough to fill in some of the blanks that Egyptologists are dealing with, then I'm open for that, because usually Rawchaa and others, through ignorance, have allowed our people to stay in a sleep state amongst their Egyptologist doctrine. And it's because certain questions weren't answered. So opposed to, disrespecting the brother or just saying whatever the case is and hollering at brothers like people are doing, let's get to hear brothers and understand them so that we can fill in the blanks. Usually people fall into different doctrines is through ignorance concerning the truth. They just ignorant. They just don't know. They don't know the validity of the Bible. They don't know. They don't have anyone to fill in the blanks to make them believe that the Bible contradicts itself. So if a forum allow us to bring the truth, it transcends Rawchaa. That's my opinion on that. What's next?
Someone says, Shalom, Tankerman. Same thing I wanted to know, but Elder Gabar did call me. Thanks to Elder Lawya. Next, let's see the next question. My fiance would like to become an elder for the Wisconsin area. We are in the academy now. How can we go about getting classified?
Good question. Well, being that your husband is in the academy, that's great. What we can do is we can link him in with the elders in the area, as far as of the region, and we'll go through a few things and we'll take some steps towards that. He can become a deacon in standing. It depends on how long he's been operating with us, and he can follow the directives, and we'll begin from there. So if he's in the academy again, at the end of the academy, we'll have a connection. We'll talk about it, and we'll discuss bringing a gathering to Wisconsin. Next question.
Someone says, our family wants to be baptized in Southern Illinois.
Okay. Well, that's no problem. We can get Lawya from Chicago to baptize you. Okay, so if you're willing to go to Chicago, this can happen almost immediately. Just send us an email, let us know where you are. Lawya will contact you. You can go to Chicago, deal with the baptism, and get directives from there as far as being a part of the church and what it all entails. Next question.
Someone says, can you give us a call? We have left an email and phone number.
Well, you have to be patient with us because there is a long list of numbers and things. Well, I thought that I was going to be answering some scriptural questions, but I opened it up. I didn't say in particular, so I'm going to stay with it. Okay, can you give us a phone call in its order? Okay, we have a lot of numbers, so just be patient with us. We will get to you. Okay, the answer is yes, but it might not be immediate. But we will give you a call. All right. Usually, if you can, within your body of email, tell us the reason for the call, what exactly you're dealing with, whatever the case is, so that we can actually place the phone calls according to need. You understand? So that's how we usually deal. Things that are more acute, when it comes to circumstances, we try to deal with those things first. So let us know what you're dealing with within the letter instead of just saying, "Can you call me?" Okay? And therefore, it'll be in its pecking order. Okay? What's next?
Someone says, what do you do if your parents don't wake up to the truth and can't get baptized without their consent? Because I'm 15 years old and I have been listening to you guys for a month, and I emailed your church, and my parents said that I can leave the Catholic Church when I'm 18.
Okay. So good question, because the age of accountability is at the age of 12. But there's also a scripture that says to honor your mother and father. Now, you don't have to honor them by honoring them is not staying a pagan, but you must respect their wishes in their house. And you'll never see us giving advice to a minor against their parents. You understand? So you must pray for your parents. That's what you must do. And be patient. There will come a time where the opportunity will come for you to be baptized in the proper spirit. But the Most High, he doesn't like disobedience when it comes to parents. So what you have to do is be patient and pray for them, and the Most High will make a breakthrough. If you let them know it's important to you that you be baptized, and let them know why, and show them in the Bible why, that you're at the age of accountability, and you want to be baptized like Christ was. Not with some water sprinkled on your head. You want to be fully submerged like Christ. And show them in the Bible and say, you would really appreciate this. And it doesn't take away anything that they have instilled in you, and that you still love them and you love the principles they have instilled in you. But this thing in the Bible is really affecting you, and you would like that done for your own salvation. Now, and of course, when you get 18, like they said, you're able to make your own decisions according to the law, their law, and then you can make your choices. But until then, try to walk that tightrope to respect your parents, but then also show them in the Bible exactly why you have certain views. If they can see it in the Bible, I'm sure they won't see any harm in submerging you in water or getting you submerged in water. All right? And if they say yes, they agree, but they're not dealing with no madness in their house outside of their doctrine, they may think it's madness, then say, okay, I respect your wishes. Let me get some people, send us an email so I can be baptized and submerged in water. And I will not disrespect your wishes while I'm in your home. The compromise. All right? What's next?
Someone says, how old do you have to be an elder, or is it understanding?
Preferably over the ages of 30 in the mid-30s, where there's some level of wisdom that came with time. You're still growing up. And this system really don't allow you to grow to full age in your 20s. You're still a kid trying to find your way around, usually in your 20s, unless there's some responsibility that have been placed on you as at an early age. Usually, young men, they're still trying to get the kid out of them in their 20s. So usually, we look at an age of wisdom where things start to click in, and that's usually around in the 30s. What's next?
Someone says, let me try to get this. Never have Europeans ever demonized their own. They even defend their murderers, a lot of them. I guess there's some responses.
In response to King James. And that's why they want the defamation of King James to be out there. You never heard a defense of King James amongst the Christian authority. That should be a red flag. If they want everyone to follow the Most High and to follow the Bible and believe that the Bible is the way, why would you allow the authority during the time of its translation, which is the King James Bible, why would you let the king in authority during that time be demonized? Unless that's what you want. King James was us. So the same way they demonize us in the public, they demonize him. And our people are taken to it, hook, line, and sinker, in total ignorance. It's so that we can walk away from our book, and that's why they allow King James to be demonized. So if you have any questions about whether or not King James was a man of majesty and one to be revered and respected, go online and look at our video, The Truth About King James, that we released from our Hebrew Academy. It'll show you everything of why they demonized him, the whole thing. And not only that, King James was bringing forth the truth concerning the Antichrist. That the Antichrist wasn't just one man, it was the authority of the Catholic Church. So while people are looking for one man to pop up, the Antichrist was being fought against by King James. It's the whole governmental, systematic, satanic system from Rome. What's next?
Someone says, what's your take in the claim of Ethiopian Solomonic blood connection? Any truth to that?
There is no truth to Ethiopian Solomonic blood connection. They claim that when Queen of Sheba visited Solomon, that she was impregnated by Solomon and bear a bloodline through Judah, which would be a kingship or an offspring. No. And not only that, that's blasphemy. Because what they're trying to do is they're trying to claim that the kingship and bloodline, according to the Bible that links to Christ, links someplace else. So if they can have a son that was born, whose age is beyond his son, then they can say, well, really the prophecies of that king is coming through this line and not the line according to the Bible. So if you believe that, then you'll now have questions concerning whether or not Christ is the Savior. So you really have to look at the mindset behind their doctrinal scenarios when they come up with this Queen of Sheba in Ethiopia. It's deep because it's Antichrist. It makes you believe that the bloodline of the prophecies of kings now is not through Solomon's son that leads through to Christ. And therefore, you don't need to believe in Christ. And as you see, most people that believe that doctrine believes that Haile Selassie is the one. See that? Claiming there was a kid that was born through Solomon that led to Haile Selassie. That Haile Selassie is really the heir to that throne of David. See? So when anything that's adverse to the prophecies of the book, you know it's sheer madness and satanic. You have something there?
Yes, this is Genesis 49, verse 10.
Yes.
The scepter shall not depart from Judah.
The scepter shall not depart from Judah, according to the Bible.
Nor a lawgiver from between his feet, until Shiloh comes.
Until Shiloh comes. Shiloh means the peaceable one. That's a direct lineage from Judah to Christ. So they can't just try to inject another person through a relationship between Queen of Sheba and Solomon. That's nowhere in Hebrew record that actually happened. It's a lie. A satanic, anti-Christian, anti-Christ lie. All right, what's next? We've got a few more minutes here.
Holy Spirit in Hebrew is Kodesh Ruach. I couldn't find Wa Rawak.
Wa means and. Wa means and. Okay?
It's a private message.
Yeah, what's that? We're going to open it up for a few more. How many minutes we've been in so far?
It's 6:07 right now.
Oh, okay. Okay, we open up with this here. Okay, we good? Okay, if you want to get in contact with Dale, who's in the Detroit area that deals with your area in Cincinnati or whatever the case is, Dale is actually the moderator within the class here. So why don't you just send him a private message? And that's a direct way to contact him now instead of going around. Dale is actually the moderator of this particular class today. Send him a private message with your information and he'll contact you.
Someone says, can you do a lesson on what it means to be married? In fact, I think there's a few more before that.
Okay, what you got? What you have there?
Someone says, Elder Gabar said that the Ark of the Covenant came from Egypt.
Well, we're going to be going into that at a later date, okay? How some of the power that left Egypt with Moses, with the gold and all the riches that they accessed, that there was other things, including the gold and all that was brought with them, that the Most High had him take, knowing that they would build the Ark of the Covenant in the wilderness. You understand? So it was in the substance that was taken from Egypt, because the Most High had foresight of what would be built in the wilderness, which was an ark. So we're going to be dealing with a lesson on that in its entirety when we bring out the lesson, the connection between Egypt and Israel. Okay, so I didn't want to put out anything until we had the full topic together, but the substance to make the Ark of the Covenant did come from Egypt, because all of our substance, everything we had to use and build, came from Egypt. All right? And the pyramids didn't work since the day we walked out. So there is a connection between the substance that we took out and what happened in Egypt after that, subsequent to that. So yes, there is a connection there. Don't forget, we became a nation in Egypt. So all the technology and things that we've created in Egypt is all being accredited to Egyptians, because there was no such people as a nation of Israel while we were living in Egypt. So any technology or anything that was going on in Egypt during that whole period is accredited to Egyptians. Keep that in mind. See, and that's the part that we're looking to tie in, so that people can, because the Egyptologists have a leg to stand on. Why? Because all the greatness that they are looking at to draw people into Egyptology actually happened through our technology that the Most High gave us to become revered in Egypt. The problem is Egyptologists are equating all that to Egypt and don't realize that was us in Egypt. So we have to tie that in for them, because what they claim is, well, there's no such people as Israel in Egypt in the time period they claim that they were enslaved. Well, there wouldn't be no history of Israelites in Egypt, because Israelites did not become Israelites until they left Egypt. So you will not find no history of Israelites in Egypt, because we were called Egyptians in Egypt. So that's the piece we're going to tie in. All right. And I know a few things Gabar is actually putting out there right now. But, you know, I'm not going to put anything out there until the whole lesson come through. I'm not going to filter no stuff out there. I'm going to wait till we have the lesson and bring circumstantial proof that's going to destroy all that Egyptology doctrine that they have against Israel. It's going to just take it down because it's going to fill in the blanks. And I think this will be the bridge between them and the Bible. Because a lot of them, it's true. It's true. And their spirit is linking into our time in Egypt because it was us. They just don't know that these people were Israelites. Became Israelites. All right? What's next?
Someone says, did I miss the lesson?
We're going to begin the lesson in a couple of seconds. We have a few things I wanted to go into.
Someone says...
what we're doing is, I said the last time I was on that I would answer a few questions from the last time, because when I left out and it was a lot of people that was asking questions and I wasn't able to answer them. So I said, I promised them that I'll take the next 15 or 20 minutes the next time I'm on and answer some questions. Okay? And therefore, you know, I probably wouldn't have to answer too many at the end of this. All right, what's next?
Someone says about the flee Babylon doctrine, didn't Persia already conquer Babylon?
Oh, okay. Let me make this clear. Let me make this clear. There is, let's pause one moment. Let me make this 100% clear so that we don't ever hear this again to the point of offense. All right? I'm going to say this clear. There is no such doctrine as flee Babylon. Let me repeat. There is no such doctrine as flee Babylon. Like, for instance, I'm going to give you an instance. I need you to go to, and the person that asked that question about the flee Babylon doctrine, I need you to hear this clearly. Go to when Jerusalem was compassed with armies in the book of Luke, when Christ said it. Now, before I answer your question about flee Babylon, I want to show you how even such a term can be dismissive according to what the Most High says. Because if you say it's a doctrine, that means it's open for one to agree or disagree with it. So when someone asks a question, and the question is about the flee Babylon doctrine, that makes people minimize and think that they have a choice concerning what the Most High said, because it's doctrinal. If it's doctrinal, we can claim it came from a man. Therefore, we have the option to accept it or dismiss it, and it really doesn't make a difference. I need you to read this in Luke.
St. Luke chapter 21, verse 19. In patience possess ye your souls, and when ye shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, then know that the desolation thereof is nigh. Then let them which are in Judea...
Hold up. Read that again. Put the chapter and verse down there again.
St. Luke chapter 21, verse 20.
Go ahead.
And when ye shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies...
This is what Yeshua said. This is what Christ said. When you shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies...
Then know that the desolation thereof is nigh.
Know that the desolation, Israel being desolate, the prophecies that was written of in Daniel, is about to come to pass. That your people will be utterly destroyed in this land. Read.
21. Then let them which are in Judea...
And then let them which are in Judea...
Flee to the mountains.
Flee to the mountains. Now and the reason I'm going here with this, because we must first go to the first place where the Most High warned the people to flee, through Christ. Now, those that didn't believe would claim that this was a flea doctrine. But it was from the Most High who prophesied a fall of Israel, that Israel would be scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. And in order for that to happen, the Gentiles would need to overrun Israel from where? From Judea. So this was just a warning for those that was following the Most High, so that they could be protected. So that they could be protected. Now, is that a flee Rome doctrine? Now, and I'm glad, because this is actually a segue into what I was going to go into. That's how I know it was the Spirit of the Most High. I need you to go into Josephus real quick and grab me all the places where the people didn't listen to the Most High because they thought that Christ was bringing a flea doctrine. For the people that stayed back. You with me? Mm-hmm. All right. Thank you. I'm in the book of Josephus because Josephus recorded that flea. So I'm going to say this. There is no such thing as flea doctrine. It's what the Most High say. And that's it. And it's up to you whether you want to believe it or not. It's up to you. If you don't believe it, stay put. That's your option. But don't try to minimize what the Most High say, because you think it's not right. And I'm saying this, you, and I'm making that an open statement. I'm not trying to attack anyone personally, because I know that there's people out there that are talking and claiming that it's a doctrine from the Gathering of Christ Church. Oh yeah, those guys that talk about the flea doctrine. So I'm going to move myself out of the way of this so that we can see what the Most High had to say. And the first example I can give you is for the people that didn't flee from Rome. We had people back during Roman time, when the desolation was near, claiming that his doctrine just wasn't correct. And that people really weren't supposed to flee because the Most High was going to always protect Israel. And that was a promise from the Most High. Let me know when you got it, right?
Come.
You have it?
Yes, it's War of the Jews.
War of the Jews.
Book 6, chapter 5.
War of the Jews. Book 6, what?
Chapter 5.
Chapter 5. Read.
This is starting at paragraph 3. It says, "Thus were the miserable people persuaded by these deceivers." So
there were some deceivers during the time of the desolation.
I'm going to start a few more.
There were some deceivers. I'm glad you brought that out. I want you to start a few verses up. But there were some people deceiving others who already knew what to do. Listen to this. And these were so-called respected doctrinal teachers. Read.
This is going back to the last part of paragraph 2. It says, "A false prophet was the occasion of the people's destruction."
It says a false prophet was the occasion for the people's destruction. What was the false prophet saying during the time that the Romans destroyed Jerusalem in 70 AD?
"Who had made a public proclamation in the city that very day that God commanded them to get upon the temple, and that they should receive miraculous signs of their deliverance."
So now he says, listen, don't flee like Christ said, dude. We all need to come to the temple, and the Most High will do a miraculous miracle to save us. And that goes into people claiming that some UFOs are going to pick them up. So there's nothing new under the sun. Oh, we don't got to go anywhere. The Most High going to send some UFOs. What if you find out that the majority of what you see in the sky is not from the Most High? What if you find out that these ships and all that are satanic ships? They're not coming to pick you up to do what you think they're going to do with you. Listen to this clearly. Read.
"Now there was then a great number of false prophets."
And it wasn't just one. There was many. Now, everyone understood what Christ said because he was the last prophet. Christ says, when you shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, flee into the wilderness. Don't ask no questions. The angels will protect you. Leave. Right? But some stood up and said, well, listen, no. They will claim that they got revelation from the Most High to go to the temple and be protected where the Most High told them to flee from. And it wasn't just one. There was many. Read on.
Now there was then a great number of false prophets suborned by the tyrants to oppose on the people, who pronounced this to them, that they should wait for deliverance from God.
Wait for deliverance from the Most High. Whatever deliverance you want, then the Most High telling you what to do when you see Jerusalem compassed with armies. What deliverance are you looking for in direct defiance to your God? See that? So they knew what Christ said and didn't believe it. They knew what Yeshua said, but didn't believe it. So to downplay it, they probably chalked it up as a flea doctrine. Mm-hmm. See? He don't know what he's talking about. We can be delivered from here. Right? Finish reading.
And this was in order to keep them from deserting.
And that was to keep the people from leaving. And common sense will tell people, if you look at what's going on in the news right now, looking to close all the borders and to stop people from leaving and to making this Ebola campaign a reason where you wouldn't be able to travel from one place to the next. Common sense will tell you that it's a certain spirit that's trying to keep you in a certain place to destroy you. So while people still have some level of autonomy and freedom, where they can still make choices, that's when you're supposed to make the choices, when you still have the freedom to. Okay? Finish reading.
And that they might be buoyed up above fear and care by such hopes.
Go ahead.
Now a man that is in adversity does easily comply with such promises. For when such a seducer makes him believe that he shall be delivered.
So when a seducer make you believe that you will be delivered outside of what the Most High said. And it's deep how people have flipped it around to make people believe the deceiver is the one that say flee. The deceiver is the one that's looking to go against what the Most High said. That's the deceiver. So I don't care how many scriptures someone may go to where the Most High say deliver, 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 deliver. How can you be delivered when you didn't first do what the Most High said? That's the question. Will Israel be delivered? The answer is yes, but from where? He's definitely not going to deliver you from the place he told you to flee from. Okay? You will not, the same way Israel was not delivered from Rome. Finish reading.
For when such a seducer makes him believe that he shall be delivered from those miseries which oppress him, then it is that the patient is full of hopes of such his deliverance. Thus was the miserable people persuaded by these deceivers.
So the miserable people were persuaded by the deceivers. Those are they who claim they Israel, claim they know what they're talking about. But they see where the Most High say flee and say, well, the Most High ain't really saying flee here. The Most High's not saying that. That's what they claim. Listen to this clearly, read.
Thus were the miserable people persuaded by these deceivers, and such as belied God himself, while they did not attend nor give credit to the signs that were so evident.
They didn't give credence to the signs that were evident. Now, mind you, Israel had enough time to understand what the signs would be. Christ made it crystal clear. When you shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, flee into the wilderness. That's your sign. Keep in mind, there's nothing new under the sun. So when the Roman armies were first going through Jerusalem, there was no physical threat to the society at first. They was actually there as a form of police that was helping in certain circumstances. So the people, our people, got used to seeing them because they weren't harming us at that time. But what happens when the Caesar or the president decree an executive order? The armies are already in place to do what they need to do against us. So the executive order, if you understand anything about history during that time in 70 AD, was a decree from Vespasian and his son Titus to take Jerusalem down. And the armies were already in place through a false flag that happened a few years prior through Nero. Nero burned 7 cities and a few cities in Rome and claimed that we did it, claimed that the black Jews burned Rome. And that was a pretext for them to now have army amongst a people who knew that you cannot be policed by another nation. See? Our false flag in our modern time was the Twin Towers. They so-called blame bin Laden, but you look on the news now, you don't see bin Laden as a face of terrorism, do you? You see us. That was the plan the whole time. Same thing is happening right now. So our sign was what? When you shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies. So our sign is, no matter what they put out, Ebola, swine, or whatever the case is, when you see military as often as you see police, that's your sign. You know that you're on borrowed time. When you go outside and you begin to see as much military as you see police, and it's prevalent in your system, even though in your society, even though they're not doing nothing to you, but their presence is there. Know that you're one executive order from not being able to go anywhere. And then the only thing you can do is hope and pray that you're delivered from where you are, because you will not have a choice. Okay? So what we can do is give you examples of the past, because it's nothing different. Christ told us what to do. Those that had any sense fled into Africa. And that's why you are here today to ask about the flea doctrine, because they took heed to Christ's prophecy. See, our parents listened going into Africa. That's why you're here. That's why we're here. These are they that follow the signs. Now we're here in modern day Rome. Same campaign, same prophecies. Finish reading.
It says, thus were the miserable people persuaded by these deceivers, and such as belied God himself, while they did not attend nor give credit to the signs that were so evident, and did so plainly foretell their future desolation, but like men infatuated, without either eyes to see or minds to consider, did not regard the denunciations that the Most High made to them.
They were so caught up into thinking that it wasn't so, that Jerusalem could not be destroyed. They ignored all the signs that would have saved them. And this goes into people I see out there that are trying to go through the scriptures to try to come against us about whether or not people are supposed to flee. And they're so concentrated on us. They're not even looking at the signs that Christ and the Most High left for them in this time. Keep in mind, we can't save anyone. All right? Keep that in mind. So you're so focused, people are so focused on man, they're ignoring what the Most High said. What did the Most High tell you? Okay? And see, that's the issue now. They're so focused, their attention went someplace else. You should have known it would come a time where the Most High would begin to call his people out of these particular servitude lands. You should have known that it would come a time. And you would know it, and you should have known that it would come a time that the Romans would eventually try to fulfill what they couldn't do in 70 AD. Put a global net on the earth to kill us off all at once, especially in these cities. So when I hear someone claim or say the flea doctrine, that's minimizing what the Most High said. And it's the same spirit that was deceiving people back during the time where our people should have listened to Christ, who knew what Christ said, but decided to follow these deceivers. Okay? Finish reading.
Thus, there was a star resembling a sword, which stood over the city, and a comet that continued a whole year.
Now, these things were actually signs in the heavens that people could see. We were reading the stars back then. So the Most High, right before he allowed the Romans to destroy us, like was prophesied in Daniel, the Most High had signs in the heavens where the stars were shaped like a sword over our land. Now, what type of sign is that? The Most High is saying, listen, these people are about to kill you. You better listen to what my son told you and leave. A sword is over the land. So the Most High even gave little signs beyond prophecy of Christ, the prophecies of Christ during the time right before Israel was destroyed. Read.
Thus, also before the Jews' rebellion, and before those commotions which preceded the war, when the people were come in great crowds to the feast of unleavened bread, on the 8th day of the month Zapticus, and at the 9th hour of the night, so great a light shone round the altar and the holy house, that it appeared to be bright daytime, which lasted for half an hour.
Read.
This light seemed to be a good sign to the naive.
It was a good sign to the naive, read.
But was so interpreted by the sacred scribes as to portend those events that followed immediately upon it. At the same festival also, a heifer, as she was led by the high priest to be sacrificed, brought forth a lamb in the midst of the temple.
So a heifer brought forth a lamb in the midst of the temple. So the Most High was doing all this as signs. Now, for those who don't know, the lamb is Christ. So that was pointing everyone in the temple towards understanding or looking back at the lamb's prophecies. To say, leave. The lamb said, when you see Jerusalem compassed with armies, you better leave. Christ is that lamb. So the Most High had an heifer give birth in the temple and bring forth a lamb, so that all the wise men and those that were understanding scripture would look at the prophecies of Christ and leave. They probably in the temple saying, well, that flea doctrine. Yeah, it's a flea doctrine. You know, they say this, they say that. And see, that's the ugly thing and the worst thing about YouTube and social networks. Everyone have an opinion. To the point where people don't know what's right or wrong. But the naive and ignorant get caught up in between. If there was only one voice and one understanding according to what the Most High said, then people would follow. But people that have minimized the Most High's word to man's opinion. And anyone with wisdom should come to the point where they can decipher between men's opinion, and what the Most High said. Okay? What did the Most High say? On and on and on, the Most High showed signs. Finish reading. And see, I'd rather deal with an eyewitness that was there. Josephus, or Rawchaa in the Hebrew, a black Jew, was paid to record this account in Roman history. So if you don't believe this, this is actually if you don't believe the Bible, some people don't, this is a secular historical book that can be corroborated through Roman history. So Josephus actually lived. He's documented in Roman history. So the Bible tells us there's nothing new under the sun, and they're doing the same thing. So why not go back to when it happened to us at first? So that we can learn from our era. If you don't know history, we're doomed to repeat it. So here we go. I went back to 70 AD and realized it's the same exact things that are happening right now. That the desolation is not finished because we're still breathing. We're just at the end of it. So that fleeing from Rome was the beginning until the end of desolations. Okay? And the Romans are able to do the same thing over and over again due to our ignorance. And then the authoritative people, those who should know scripture, are now trying to downplay what the Most High said. Finish reading.
Moreover, the eastern gate of the inner court of the temple, which was of brass and vastly heavy, and had been with difficulty shut by 20 men, and rested upon a base covered with iron, and had bolts fastened very deep into the firm floor, which was there made of one entire stone, was to be opened of its own accord about the 6th hour of the night. Now those that kept watch in the temple came, but running to the captain of the temple, and told it of him, who then came up there, and not without great difficulty was able to shut the gate again. This also appeared to the vulgar to be a happy prodigy, as if God did thereby open them the gate of happiness. But the men of learning understood it, that the security of their holy house was dissolved of its own accord, and that the gate was opened for the advantage of their enemies. So these publicly declared that the signal foreshadowed the desolation that was coming upon them.
It was foreshadowing that the Most High wasn't going to protect Israel. That he was going to allow the enemy to come in. Why? Because it was prophesied, because of our sins, Israel had to become desolate and be scattered and one day be gathered back again. That's why Christ even said that the fleeing didn't stop with Rome. It says, when you are persecuted in one city, flee into the next. It didn't stop with Rome. We're in the city of the great whore, the majority of us today, who is Judah. And it's not just New York. Finish reading.
Besides these, a few days after the feast, on the 120th day of the month Artemisius, a certain great and incredible phenomenon appeared.
Go ahead.
I suppose the account of it would seem to be a fable, were it not related by those that saw it. And were not the events that followed it of so considerable a nature to deserve such signals? For before sunsetting, chariots and troops of soldiers in their armor were seen, running about among the clouds, and surrounding of cities.
So the Most High even showed Jerusalem being taken down by armies through the clouds. He was showing signs through the clouds, showing an army around Jerusalem where no one can get out. Why do you think everyone is speaking of border control and border? Let's close the borders. Let's protect the borders. Why do you think you're hearing that right now? Why do you think you're hearing it? The border is not to stop Mexicans and others and ISIS and all this mess from getting in. They're looking to secure the border so that we don't get out. And how can the Most High deliver you from something when you had the freedom to do what he said when he said it, when you understood it? So you want that God to deliver you? The one that you ignored when you had time? So brothers and sisters really have to resolve this and understand. What God is you looking to deliver you? The one who told you to leave? And if he was going to deliver you from where you were, why would he say leave? Right? Now, let's just give him the chapter so I don't read this, but give him the whole book of Josephus and you read it and you tell me if there's any such thing as a flea doctrine. When the people are in the spirit of fear, when they're in the spirit of indecisiveness, they usually follow one who they feel have authority or have some level of connection to the Most High. So when these things were coming down on Israel, these deceivers in here had a choice. They could have just said, well, this is what Christ said, and just took all the blame and all that off of themselves and let the people make a decision based on what Christ said. Okay? But they didn't. They claimed that it was just a doctrine. And that the Most High would never destroy his temple. And that they were to go to the temple to be delivered. And therefore our people were destroyed there. There is no temple in this earth anymore. The temple was rent in two when Christ was crucified. And they're so ignorant of that understanding. Jerusalem will always stand. Our God will always protect us. And believe me, these people had a sound voice. They were very great orators. Remember, we were delivered from the Red Sea. And then the ignorant were looking at them and saying, well, okay, this guy like he know what he's talking about. He's one that I know followed the law and did what's right. It seemed like they follow the Most High and know what's right. Okay, I'm just going to follow him. What did Christ say? Okay, now, I'm going to go through a few of these scriptures right now. Let's go to Revelations 18. And someone tell me whether or not this is a doctrine or this is the Most High. Who asked the question about that? What's his name? Or her name?
Let's see. Rudy
Pina.
Yeah.
Okay, Rudy Pina. When I'm finished this, real quick, I need you to let me know what the flea doctrine is. Rudy Pina, you asked the question. Start at Revelations 18 and 1.
Revelations chapter 18, verse 1. And after these things I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory.
Okay.
And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen, is fallen.
Babylon the Great is fallen, is fallen. Now, mind you, this is answering the second part of your question. Didn't Persia already conquer Babylon? Well, if Babylon was already conquered, why is it saying in Revelations, Babylon the Great is fallen, it's fallen? So what Babylon is speaking of here in Revelations? Because if you know biblical history, John came hundreds of years after Babylon was already taken down. The ancient Babylon, which is Iraq. So obviously there's a different Babylon outside of the Babylon that was taken down by the Persians. Yes? So let's just focus not on the ancient Babylon in the Old Testament. Let's focus on this Babylon that John is speaking of in Revelations 18. Can you focus with me? Let's leave the old one alone and let's find out the one it's speaking of here. Read.
Revelations 18:2.
Because I agree. Babylon was taken down by the Persians. Iraq was taken down by the Persians in old time. See? That's true. That's correct. But don't forget, in the prophecies in the book of Jeremiah, it tells us that Babylon would not be inhabited by man or beast. So obviously, if Saddam Hussein was still in Iraq during our time, that could not have been the Babylon it was speaking of. Because men were still there and animals were still there, even after being taken down by Persia. Are you with me here? So there must be another Babylon where it says that there will be no man or beast left. Now I know clearly that it's speaking of America, who is the daughter of Babylon. Let me show you. Get your precepts together. I'm going to show you. How do we know it's the daughter of Babylon? All right? Read that again.
Revelations 18:2. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying,
Go ahead.
Babylon the Great is fallen, and is become the habitation of devils.
So obviously this Babylon has become the habitation of devils. So the ancient spirits would be moved from ancient Babylon to the new Babylon to control the people. So when something comes to this new place, they would bring demons with them. Right? Now, how do we know this is not speaking of ancient Babylon and a different Babylon in Revelations? Follow me. Hold that. Let's go to Psalms 137.
Psalms 137, verse 1.
Yes.
By the rivers of Babylon.
By the rivers of Babylon.
There we sat down. Yea, we wept when we remembered Zion.
We sat down and we wept when we remembered Zion. Now let's just reflect on this verse of 137 real quick. Because during this time when David wrote this song, Israel wasn't in captivity. Okay? David was the king of Israel. So this is an actual future psalm foretelling Israel's fall. Because David wasn't weeping, remembering Zion. This was a future prophecy being sung here. There we wept. Read.
By the rivers of Babylon, there we sat down. Yea, we wept when we remembered Zion.
We wept when we remembered Zion. When did that happen at? That happened on the shores of our captive lands in the future. So David is not speaking of some ancient Babylon here. He's speaking of a place where we will be carried away captive and serve our enemies. Read.
Verse 2. We hanged our harps upon the willows.
And when it says we hang our harp among the willows, that means we sung under the willow trees. And it so happened that they call the willow trees, and you can look this up, the Babylonicus. So all the weeping willows are called the Babylonicus. Now, those who understand ancient slavery history, when our parents and our foreparents were beat and whipped, we would hide under the willow trees for refuge and pray to the Most High and cry under the willow trees because the leaves would cover us. And when I looked this up, it was amazing to me because the Babylonicus tree are found predominantly in two areas, Asia and in the southern parts of America. And we weren't taking in slave ships in China. So it's speaking of a future slavery where the Babylonicus grows. The south of America. That's down south of North America is where the weeping willows grow. Read.
Verse 3. For there they that carried us away captive.
That's how we know David is not singing of a present day event. Because during this time, nobody was taking David captive. David was feared by all nations. He says, and there they did what?
For they that carried us away captive.
They carried us away captive.
Required of us a song.
Required of us a song. That's those old Negro spirituals when we were singing. We wasn't singing about Africa in our slavery. We were singing about Zion, over the river Jordan, let my people go. We were singing about Israel. That tells us that the old Negro spirituals, those that were brought over, knew they were Israel. They weren't singing about Africa. Read.
And they that wasted us.
And they that wasted us, and it's going to show you who wasted us. Read.
Required of us mirth.
And they required for us to smile while we were singing. And that's where you get the sambo from. To smile and dance and jig for your master. Read.
Saying. Sing us one of the songs of Zion.
Sing us one of those old songs of Zion. That's where you get, that's the origin of gospel music. Now this is Babylon it's speaking of here. Not Iraq. Not the place that was taken down by the Persians. Where were we singing Negro spirituals at? Where were we running under willow trees and crying and weeping for our homeland? Where did that happen at? Read.
Verse 4. How shall we sing the Lord's song in a
How
strange
can we
land?
sing the Lord's song outside of our borders, outside of our land, Israel? How can we sing as if we're happy? I'm talking about, we were singing in America as if we were happy to be there. We were brought there against our will. And I'm going to tell you, the majority of people that are saying that it's just a doctrine as far as fleeing Babylon is because their heart is in Babylon. They don't know nothing else. They only know slavery. Read.
How long shall we sing the Lord's song in a strange land?
How can we sing the Lord's song in a strange land?
If I forget thee, O Jerusalem.
And David says, if I ever forget my homeland,
let my right hand forget her cunning.
I don't want to be able to do anything. Your right hand is the gift of the Most High to show your worth and work on this earth. He says, if I don't know who I am, I don't want to be able to do anything. And our people in America, they could care less where they're from. They could care less concerning the history that led to their captivity. They think it was just a point in time in which we were being oppressed, minimizing the curse that was placed on us that would one day be lifted. America is not our home. See? And those that claim that fleeing Babylon is just a doctrine, heart is in the place of their captivity. They don't have the heart of David, who desires something greater, which was promised to our fathers. So fleeing is not the fear. It's not because you're scared you're fleeing. People that are scared are those that are sitting pat. They are afraid of operating with the Most High's faith. They don't believe that the Most High can help them through, because they only can lick. They only know to lick from their master's hand. Finish reading.
If I do not remember thee,
and if I do not remember thee,
let my tongue cleave to the roof of my mouth.
David said, I don't want to be able to say or speak or utter another word if I can forget, if I will ever forget my God and my land. See? A people without a land are a people without hope. And I'm not talking about Africa, because we're lost in Africa, because that's not our land either. That's just refuge until we get our land back. Read.
If I prefer not Jerusalem above my chief joy.
If I don't prefer Jerusalem above my chief joy. And why did David say that? Because that land was promised to us by the Father, by the Creator. It's ours. But for those who are used to being slaves, they love their captivity and stay thereon. They don't desire nothing outside of massa and slavery and captivity. That's a home-born slave. Read.
Verse 7. Remember, O Lord.
Remember, O Lord.
The children of Edom.
That's why it says, remember the children of Edom, because Edom is Rome. Rome is the modern day Jewish powers. Read.
And the day of Jerusalem, who said, raise it, raise it.
Now, Edom didn't destroy Jerusalem during David's time. He was speaking of a future prophecy of how the Edomites, the Roman Empire, would raise Israel and have it become desolate. The times that Christ was prophesying. What we just read of in the book of Josephus. It was Edom that raised Israel. That means destroyed it to its foundation. And desecrated the Most High's holy land. They began to sacrifice pigs on the Most High's altar on purpose. An unclean, foul animal. Listen.
Raise it, even to the foundation thereof.
Go ahead.
O daughter of Babylon.
O who?
O daughter of Babylon.
That's how we know that it's not speaking of the Babylon that was taken down by the Persians. That's how we know in Revelations. Because it's now speaking of a daughter of Babylon. So John could not be speaking about ancient Babylon after Babylon was already taken down, could he? He must be speaking of who? The daughter of Babylon. Are you following me? So let's get the Persian and all that out of there. Let's push that to the side. Let's speak about the daughter, the place we were taken captive. That have all the rituals and religions and worships of ancient Babylon. December the 25th, Nimrod's and Tammuz's birthday. Mother's Day, Semiramis' birthday, ancient Babylon. Sunday worship was a decree under ancient Babylon picked up by the Romans. On and on and on and on. All the days you celebrate are Babylonian. Okay? That's the daughter of Babylon. You're living in her. So when the Most High make a decree, it's not a doctrine. It says, O daughter of Babylon, read.
O daughter of Babylon, who art to be destroyed.
Who art to be destroyed.
Happy shall he be that rewardeth thee as thou hast served us. Happy shall he be that taketh and dasheth thy little ones against the stones.
So eventually there will be a judgment on the daughter of Babylon. Are you following me? Now, is that my doctrine? Am I just putting some scriptures together to serve a personal agenda? Or is that what the Most High said? What's your interpretation of that? Now, it doesn't matter. For some who can't see or hear, the scriptures won't do it anyway. But I'm putting it out there so that people can't pigeonhole what the Most High say into a man's doctrine. If you never hear what man have to say ever again, when you open up this book of Revelations, when it says Kamatopher, you better hear what the Most High is saying. Okay? If one day you come on here and you never hear myself or any other brother teaching or on the streets or whatever, because that time will come. And I think that time is coming sooner than we think. And when that time is here, you better open up this book and follow exactly what it's saying verbatim and not try to get another spin off of what the Most High is saying or pigeonhole what he's saying into a doctrine. Because it's this word that have led us this far. And one thing I know, when you follow the Most High, it actually advances your faith. It strengthens your understanding of him. When you do what he say, and then you become the better for it. And all the things you thought could happen that could have been wrong, that was your own fear. I come to find out that we've been programmed into believing captivity is okay. And it wasn't until stepping out on faith that we realized the Most High had us the whole time. You will never understand that until you exercise faith. So fear have others out there claiming that fleeing Babylon is a doctrine. Fear of not having the security, and that's the proper word, that was made for you within your captivity. Why? Because the first thing we hear is, well, where are we going to work? Where are we going to have jobs? Where am I going to get money? Where am I going to hit it? No one is actually realizing that all these things that have sustained us will not be in this system very soon. Will not be a part of this world system.